No, I did not forget. I merely had to postpone returning to this debunking expose, as a number of distractions, both related and unrelated, interfered with my ability to address certain topics in a timely fashion, and other priorities likewise had to take precedence in the meantime. However, I'm now caught up just enough to submit the concluding entry of this detailed examination and to deflate this collection of unambiguously misandristic assertions regarding what defines a man as a, quote, supporter, unquote, of the crime of rape, as compiled by a frothing-mouthed disingenuous radical who calls herself Eve's daughter, who fraudulently portrays herself as a genuine feminist, who operates the blog site she calls Eve Bit First. This final entry will complete the analysis of her fallacious allegations against men, all men, and expose the phoniness of her professed concerns about both this issue and about the women who are or who may become affected by this very serious issue. So, picking up where we left off last, a man is a supporter of rape if he defends the current legal definition of rape and or opposes making consent a defense. Now I'm going to be very honest with you. This particular clause threw me completely off because in this sentence she seems to be radically contradicting herself. After everything that we had examined up to this point, suddenly she includes a statement which declares basically someone who has a respect for the law, a man who actually supports prosecution against the crime of rape. This sentence so does not fit in with the entire theme of the rest of everything else that we had examined up to this point. So I'm looking at this thing, scratching my head, trying to make sense of it, and speculating all sorts of things. Could it possibly be that she had used the inappropriate words that she was intending to use, for instance, rather than a man who opposes making consent a defense, which is what a lot of men actually do. I dare say most men who are accused of committing rape or who question the legitimacy of a rape claim, usually their go-to thing is consent was involved, and they use that as a defense. So why would opposing using consent as a defense equate into someone who's actually a supporter of rape? Doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction. The same as with the first half of her clause here, that he actually defends the current legal definition of rape. If someone defends the legal definition of a crime, that should tell you automatically that they do not support the crime. So there was something hidden in this meaning. I could not just let this bypass and think that maybe this was just a Freudian slip on her part. I had to believe that the way that she worded this sentence was very deliberate. So in order to determine exactly what she was attempting to put forth with this declaration, I decided to conduct a little bit of research. And my information sources were law.com and findlaw.com. In the legal term search on the law.com page under the heading Rape, we have two definitions. Definition 1. Noun, quote, the crime of sexual intercourse with actual penetration of a woman's vagina with the man's penis without consent and accomplished through force, threat of violence, or intimidation, such as a threat to harm a woman's child, husband, or boyfriend. What constitutes lack of consent usually includes saying no or being too drunk or drug influenced for the woman to be able to either resist or consent. But a recent Pennsylvania case ruled that a woman must do more than just say no on the bizarre theory that no does not always mean don't, but a flirtatious come on. Date rape involves rape by an acquaintance who refuses to stop when told to. Defense attorneys often argue that there had to be physical resistance, but the modern view is that fear of harm and the relative strengths of the man and the woman are obvious deterrents to a woman fighting back. Any sexual intercourse with a child is rape, and in most states, sexual relations, even with consent involving a girl 14 to 18, with some variation on ages in a few states, is, quote, statutory rape, unquote, on the basis that the female is unable to give consent, close quote. Second definition, verb, quote, to have sexual intercourse with a female without her consent through force, violence, threat, or intimidation, or with a girl under age. Technically, a woman can be charged with rape by assisting a man in the rape of another woman. Dissatisfied with the typical prosecution of rape cases, in which the defense humiliates the accuser and prosecutors are unable or unwilling to protect the woman from such tactics, women have been suing for civil damages for the physical and emotional damage caused by the rape, although too often the perpetrator has no funds. Stopping quote there. Now, based upon a reading of Law.com's definition, one would think that Eve's daughter would have absolutely no problem with what was laid out in this legal definition, except for one little telling clause, which I will reiterate. Quote, a recent Pennsylvania case ruled that a woman must do more than just say no, on the theory that no does not always mean don't, but is a flirtatious come on, close quote, and I deliberately left out the word bizarre, where they refer to it as a bizarre theory, because by embellishing that definition with that word, it no longer becomes a neutral definition, but it becomes commentary and it becomes advocacy. So simply the inclusion of that one little word distorts and disrupts this what is supposed to be a legal definition. But even so, the body of that statement reveals one problem that Eve's daughter apparently has with the, quote, legal definition, unquote, of rape, in that in cases where it is stated that a woman should resist the crime of rape, if she does resist or she claims to resist and sex occurs, that it does not necessarily follow that no always means no, as is the common mantra. And women who are honest with themselves will acknowledge that that is often a fact. So were it not for that one small clause, based on her compiled list of indicators, Eve's daughter would have had absolutely no problem with this definition of rape. So that still raises the question, what problem does she have with the legal definition of rape, whereby if a man supports that legal definition, he is to be considered a supporter of rape? Well, let's see what the FindLaw Legal Dictionary has to say about it. Under their legal definition of the word rape, using Merriam-Webster's Dictionary of Law as their source, quote, unlawful sexual activity and usually sexual intercourse carried out forcibly or under threat of injury against the will, usually of a female, or with a person who is beneath a certain age or incapable of valid consent because of mental illness, mental deficiency, intoxication, unconsciousness, or deception. See also statutory rape. Note, the common law crime of rape involved a man having carnal knowledge of a woman, not his wife, through force and against her will, and required at least slight penetration of the penis into the vagina, close quote. So do you see where this is going? According to FindLaw.com, it still seems as though their legal definition supports the theory that all rape is a man-only criminal offense. But reading this passage again, enough care is taken in the definition of this term to leave open the possibility that not just men can be charged with the crime of rape, which FindLaw's definition states emphatically in the following sentence, quote, while some states maintain essentially this definition of rape, most have broadened its scope, especially in terms of the sex of the persons and the nature of the acts involved." Close quote. Now we begin to understand what Eve's daughter's problem is with what she refers to as, quote, "the current legal definition of rape," unquote. What she is in effect saying is that she doesn't want any definition which has the ability and the potential to implicate women as rapists. She wants to ignore the fact that women, just like men, can and do use things such as threats and coercion in order to get unwilling sex from men, or, depending on the situation, from other women. And of course, we've seen enough school teachers go to prison to recognize that the crime of statutory rape is not an exclusive male against female crime. But even though we now understand what her problem is, which helps us to understand the first half of her sentence, it still conflicts with the second half of her sentence. So the only logical assumption, based upon the spirit of this compiled list, logically must be that she had accidentally substituted the word "opposes" in place of the word "defends," or possibly the word "supports." Because only when we switch that one word out with its opposite counterpart, only then does the entire sentence make any sense according to the agenda which she is trying desperately to push and promote. Women like Eve's daughter are among the growing throngs of dishonest, disingenuous frauds and hypocrites who want the accepted definition of the term rape to be so vague that practically anything can be declared as a rape violation. For instance, on many college campuses, these man-hating frauds who misappropriate the label feminism for themselves are trying desperately to condition young women to get comfortable with the idea that even after they had consensual sex, if they decide that they want to feel as if they were raped, that they can come back several days later and make a rape claim, and the guy that she fingers is going to have a lot of questions to answer. This is the broad definition that these lying, hypocritical harpy shrews want. They want to be able to play the system like the devil's golden fiddle. The definition of a misogynist is someone who believes that women are powerless, are incapable, are not mature enough to be responsible for themselves or for their actions, that they're weak, that they cannot look after themselves, and that they should be held back from achieving anything for themselves, and that they should not be permitted to reach their full potential. So understanding that about the mindset of a misogynist, would you say that Eve's daughter is pro-woman, i.e. a feminist, or that she's anti-woman, i.e. a misogynist? I think you know the answer. And unfortunately with that, that's all I'm going to have time for. I will not be able to address the final remaining dark-hearted assertion from this shrew and manage to fit it within my target timeline. So I will have yet one more examination to submit before the entire count is complete.